The challenges that we have in making those alliances happen and in realising the benefits from those partnerships. And thirdly, some thoughts about the kind of solutions and the type of approach that we might need to take to overcome those. So, first of all, in terms of the importance of the relevance of alliances, alliances absolutely underpin American Airlines' approach to the global market. We are a founding member of the One World Alliance, and for those of you who are unfamiliar with the airline industry, there are kind of three big alliance groupings, One World, Star Alliance, and SkyTeam, which essentially are all trying to do more or less the same thing. In One World, we have, apart from American Airlines, other key partners like British Airways, for example, and Qantas, Cathay Pacific. I won't list off all the members. It's an alliance that is continually looking to expand, but is also very much focused on quality. In addition to the multilateral partnership we have through One World, we also have a number of bilateral partnerships and joint ventures. For example, we recently launched a joint venture with British Airways and Iberia across the North Atlantic, and we have something similar in place with Japan Airlines across the Pacific. Beyond that, we also have more localized partnerships, for example, with Kingfisher Airlines and Jet Airways here in India, that play more of a role of feeding our own operations from Delhi to Chicago. So the nature of alliances kind of varies in terms of its scope and size within the airline industry, but there are a number of kind of common threads that I would like to kind of draw upon. The first and most important aspect of having alliances is that they enable airlines to extend their reach beyond their own networks. So a case in hand would be our flight goes from Chicago to Delhi, but if we have customers who want to go almost to Bangalore, Mumbai, or the rest of India, we then transfer them onto our partner airlines to enable that to happen. So therefore, it allows American to consistently and reliably serve more destinations in India aside from just Delhi. So that's probably the most important thing. From a regulatory perspective, that's also very important because the airline industry is a little bit complex in the sense that it's an industry where market logic is sometimes constrained somewhat by, for want of a better phrase, by state interests. So, for example, concepts of cross-ownership, cross-border ownership and control, the ability to fly where you want, when you want, how you want. This is all very highly regulated by agreements that exist between individual nation states. And that often provides a limitation on where we can actually fly with our own aircraft. And that is why having these partnerships are very important for us if we want to offer a truly global network. The kind of benefits that alliances deliver for an airline are manifold. So apart from the basic concept of having an extended network, the other thing as well that comes through that is offering customers greater choice. So for example, if you're able to choose, instead of going from Delhi to the US non-stop on our flight, you may have alternatives, for example, of going through London, connecting with British Airways and then on to American there. And one of the objectives of having these types of partnership and alliance is to enable customers to benefit from the flexibility of different types of routing, a greater degree of flexibility, and also, more importantly, greater access to low fares. Because it's, as many of you know when you're booking travel, sometimes it's a struggle to get the best deal. And by having different types of routing, you have a better chance of being able to get a reasonable fare for what it is for wherever you're trying to travel. So, those are very important aspects in terms of consumer choice. Another important reason why alliances matter to us is because they also allow us to deliver individual traveller benefits in a way that reaches again beyond our own network. So I'm sure many of you are members of frequent flyer programs. Hopefully some of you are members of Advantage, our program. And one of the great benefits of alliances is that they allow you to earn and redeem miles across a wider network. They also, more importantly, allow us to deliver a consistency of service or a level of recognition that reaches beyond our own network. So if you are a top-tier member of the British Airways frequent program, for example, your tier level will be recognised when you're travelling on American. You'll be able to use our lounges, our premium check-in, and so forth. So what essentially it allows us to do is to expand that kind of care and recognition beyond our own core networks. Lastly, from an airline-to-airline perspective, the other reason why I think alliances are very important are simply because it provides an environment which fosters the sharing of best practice between different airlines. We learn from each other constantly, We have working groups in place not only to do things like develop joint networks or route plans or frequent flyer relationships, but also things like joint procurement, so investing in things like aircraft seats together or jointly procuring fuel, all of which ultimately drives benefits to our bottom line and to average fare prices as well. So access to those types of synergies and that type of best practice is very important. And also, as maybe some of you will have read in some of the discussion in the media recently about foreign direct investment in the airline industry in India, one of the other things about partnership is that I think it also helps foster access to capital. Generally speaking, if an airline wants to invest in another airline, having a partnership in place beforehand often provides a very good platform for doing so. So I think that that's also another important aspect, particularly in the context of the industry as it currently is. In terms of so that's kind of basically why we do it and why we believe alliances are a good thing. To achieve that, to deliver that, is a very challenging process, and it requires a lot of things to come good, to come together. The first and most important one is that you need to have a somewhat stable airline industry environment. You need to know who your partners are, you need to be able to trust them and depend upon them, and you need to be able to work together both in difficult times as well as good times. So your selection of partner, and I think this applies not just to the airline industry, but just about any other business sector, is extremely important. You want to make sure you're comfortable with whom you're going to be working. Not only is that important from a perspective of just kind of managing the day-to-day operations between airlines, but it's also important in being able to take a more strategic or long-term perspective in the way in which you wish to do business in different markets. The other thing as well, which is also extremely important in fostering alliances and partnerships in the airline industry, is having a supportive regulatory framework. And by that, I mean the role of government. The only way in which, for example, our joint ventures with BA or with JAL are able to work is because we have antitrust immunity granted to us by the US authorities and the equivalent from the European or Japanese authorities. It's only by having a regulatory framework that supports the concept of airline alliances that actually enables us to actually deliver the benefits. So it's very, very important that you have a regulatory framework that is supportive of actually putting alliances together. And that's a challenge that we also face here in India. We're looking to develop or strengthen our partnership with Kingfisher, and we're working with the government authorities right now to get the necessary permissions to do so. So even in the case of individual bilateral partnerships, it's still a very important requirement. And that again is kind of where you need to start kind of where again this kind of whole debate between market logic and state interests can sometimes become very important, particularly when it comes to large-scale alliance activities such as transatlantic or trans-Pacific joint ventures. Another challenge as well that is a key issue for us, and this is more kind of within the airline industry itself, is being able to deliver the promise. So a few minutes ago, I promised you that we would give you frequent flyer miles, that we will recognise you when you're travelling across different airline networks. Now, it's one thing to say it and promise it, it's another thing to actually deliver it. And that requires an immense investment in things like staff training, technology, and infrastructure in order to be able to deliver that. And in many ways, that's a lot easier said than done. As airline alliances get bigger and more complex, you have airport employees who have to learn to recognise more different types of frequent flyer card. We have to change signage at airports to ensure that members of different alliances feel at home, they know where to go, and all of that kind of stuff. So there's an amazing amount of intricacy involved in actually delivering the promise, and that's always one of the challenges, is ensuring that that is robustly and dependably executed at a worldwide level. So be it in Pantnagar,